Second to last day of Bills training camp here at St. John Fisher University. Jonathan Acosta, I'm John Scott here. Let's start with looking ahead to the preseason game that is coming at home inside Highmark Stadium this coming Saturday. The Bills' first official depth chart coming out here. Nothing really to move the needle, I would say. Keon Coleman is on the second team. He's a rookie. It's the first depth chart. I always say just take it with a grain of salt here. One interesting little note is in the return battle, which seems to be fully up for grabs. There's Andy Isabella, who thankfully was back on the field after leaving practice in a scary incident the other day. KJ Hamler, though, listed as the number one guy, Isabella second, and then Daquan Hardy, who's someone that I feel and did a story on the other day of he's making plays on defense. I think Shawn McDermott saying point blank he was drafted to be a return guy. He'll get run, probably maybe more than the other ones here, but that's really all that I really take from the initial depth chart. Spoke with Joe Brady, spoke with Josh Allen. Brady's saying, hey, we're not really getting into game planning for a preseason game. I'm going to make it simple so we can evaluate guys. Josh Allen, though, saying yes and no in terms of his feelings of actually playing in the preseason.
That's right. And for Josh, he's someone who's played in the preseason before. We saw him last year. I don't think he played in that first one against the Colts, but we saw him in Pittsburgh. That game was kind of bad, kind of ugly. And so
I think that's why they played the following week.
That's 100% why they played that following week against Chicago. Now they open up against Chicago in this first game in the preseason. He called it a double-edged sword. So what are the positives for Josh Allen playing in the preseason? Well, with so many new faces, the extra reps are pretty valuable. He even answered a question on that and said, hey, extra reps are always beneficial. But I think especially in this situation when he's yet to play in a game-like setting with so many of these new faces. Again, Khalil Shakir is the only wide receiver on this roster that has caught a pass in a game from Josh Allen. That's significant, so a preseason game, even though it's just preseason, just a series or two would be something that would be beneficial for this offense. Something else that would be a positive if he played. Getting used to getting hit in a game-like setting, It's been since January that he's played in a real game. And he even talked about in training camp, he's wearing the jersey where he's not supposed to be hit. Kind of smiled as he said, not supposed to be hit. But that's not replicating the game-like scenario where he's actually getting hit by a defensive lineman that's trying to hit him with all his might. Something that the Bills and Bills fans don't want to see Josh Allen get hit too hard, but a nick here and there, a small bump, something to just get him used to getting hit ahead of week one. Now the flip side is getting hit. You don't want him to get injured, and you don't want to run the risk because
the season's over if Josh Allen gets hurt.
Yeah, I don't want to put it out there, but obviously for any team, including the Bills, you don't want your season to end before it starts, so you want to keep them safe. And even talked about, I understand if I'm not out on the field until week one, there's plenty of time. I understand needing to stay healthy and everything. So it kind of sounds something where he understands it and sees it both ways. But one line that stuck out to me in there, the competitive side of him, the competitive juices, he wants to be in there. So Josh Allen has a little bit of sway in this organization, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in the preseason.
I don't think we'll see him this first preseason game. Shawn McDermott set to speak before practice tomorrow. He's usually, while he doesn't give a lot of information, he has in years past been pretty forthcoming about starters and playing in the preseason, and in particular Josh Allen. So we should have an answer specifically. I'd lean, at least in the Chicago game, towards no.
But I do think we'll see him later on in the preseason.
I think you'll see him in the starters maybe a quarter. Just something like that. Again, just for me, and Josh said it, at this point in his career, he doesn't need it.
No.
But when it comes to chemistry with all of the new wide receivers and whatnot, I also, if Joe Brady's not really dialing it up, if the scheme is pretty vanilla, how much timing can you really work on if you're not diving deep into all of these concepts that will be there week one? I could see both sides of it. To me, I mean, you could always go back to 2020. There was no preseason, and the Bills came out like a bat out of hell and had their best offensive season in the Josh Allen era, and there was no preseason. So I think the COVID year of 2020 kind of tempering the necessity for your top players to see action onto the field. Injury notes here. No one's really coming back, but I will say this. Had an eye on Chase Claypool. I feel like he's ramping up and he's getting closer to returning to action. He's been out the majority of camp, over a week and a half at this point. No need to rush him back because even though they're about to leave here in Rochester, there's still weeks and weeks to go of training camp and things like that, or whatever you want to refer to it back in Orchard Park. But he's the one I would say maybe keep an eye on. Ty Johnson also seems to be working his way back, but Claypool using the jugs machine by himself right behind us after practice, doing other stuff. I feel like we're on the precipice, which adds a whole new wrinkle into a wide receiver battle that continues to kind of be even, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and even though we might not see Josh Allen in the preseason, it's going to be very valuable for these receivers that are fighting to make the roster. Again, we assume Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Matt Collins, even at this point, like they're pretty safe. Curtis Samuel, but for those 4, 5, 6 positions, this is where they can stand out even more so than they have here at St. John Fisher at training camp. Guys like Tyrell Shavers, a Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a Chase Claypool, a KJ Hamler. Can he provide something in the passing game other than his abilities in the return game? What can he provide in the return game with the new kickoff rules? For those groups of guys, this is going to be so valuable. So for Chase Claypool, even if he's missing here practice at training camp, can he get back on the field? Even if he misses 1 preseason game, can he get on the field to play in 2 and really show what, at least physically, he looks like he's capable of doing just when you see the frame and you picture what that connection would look like with Josh Allen on the field?
I 100% agree with you, and it's the same feeling I had before we came here to camp. There's 4 locks. It's Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Matt Collins. They probably keep 6. I'm comfortable with assuming that at this point. That's all those guys you just named, including Chase Claypool, fighting for 2 spots. The return battle also could play a factor into this when you have guys like Hamler and Isabella in the mix as well. That's where game action is really going to start to turn the evaluation, in my opinion.
I do think there's one wrinkle, and I want to bounce this idea off of you. Do they keep 5 receivers if they want to keep a 4th tight end being Zach Davidson? Because in this scenario, you would imagine he's a guy that provides special teams value, and just they've raved about him. The size that he brings, he's someone who consistently makes plays when we watch him at practice. And you think about the potential of a guy like Zach Davidson in this tight end room catching passes from Josh Allen. Do the Bills maybe go the 5 receiver route if they feel like they have a lot of pass catching value in the tight end room?
And we'll see how the new kick return situation factors into Zach Davidson. Josh Allen saying point blank today, he's making Brandon Beane's job with
100%.
Decisions even harder. Josh doesn't get into that and things like that. Quentin Morris has been solid. He had a great camp a year ago. You know what you're getting in him. He seems like he's maybe more well-rounded, where Davidson, you know what you're getting in the passing game, is a 6'7", 6'8" guy. What does he provide potentially blocking? Yeah. That's going to be a factor. Special teams is going to factor into that. But I agree with you. I'm not saying it's out of the realm there. Allen also adding that MVS, he was point blank. We're still playing catch-up here because he didn't come to the team until the later portion of the offseason program, but he is getting integrated more than we saw in the past.
It's reminiscent of the situation at safety with Mike Edwards, where Mike Edwards came into this camp playing a little bit of catch-up, not because he was added too late, but because of injuries keeping him out for a good portion of OTAs and minicamp.
And now he's way back as he's still on the mend. James Cook, I know we were standing next to each other. He had a few moments here where he flashes, but the ball security thing is starting to become a little more prominent and something that's worth talking about.
I think the frustrating thing with James Cook is that for 50% of the play, he's so exciting. His ability to get open, get away from coverage, run the route. He's a fluid route runner. He looks like a guy who's able to make the play. And sometimes he'll even make the catch, but then some fumble issues or the ball hits him in the hands and he drops it. How many times did we see it last year where it wasn't something where double-digit drops and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy can't catch the ball. But just in some key moments, there's one, I think, in Philadelphia that sticks out to me. I think it was a wheel route up the sideline, and I think it had the potential to be a touchdown, and he dropped it. I think he had one in a couple of other key drops in would-be touchdown situations, and those are not concerns, I think, that have been alleviated by this training camp. Not to say that the issue has gotten worse, but you would hope that would have, I think it's fair to say that it's something that you would have hoped for James Cook with the season he had last year, that he comes into this year with the focus of being more sure-handed, both in terms of making the catch or when he's running with the ball, holding onto it tighter, and I just haven't seen an improvement in that area.
I had 2 examples of it today. One, an insanely awesome throw from Josh Allen on a seam. He caught it, and it was bang, bang, goal line or not, and Christian Benford knocked it loose from behind. Whether or not it was a touchdown or not remains to be seen, but still just something noteworthy. We flip over to the defensive side of things. I'm not going to say there's really anything of note that I noticed here today. I thought they were competitive in terms of as practice went along and in 11 on 11 as well. Still seeing Kaiir Elam sometimes rotated in there. Still seeing Damar Hamlin prominently next to Taylor Rapp. So nothing particularly changing on that side of the football. And that's where I think come preseason action, that's where let's see what the second wave of guys in the pass rushers, Javon Solomon. Let's see rookie Dwayne Carter. What is he doing? Let's see Dorian Williams and Balin Spector at the linebacker position. Let's see Jamarcus Ingram and some of these other guys at the cornerback spot. Frankly, let's see how much Kaiir Elam plays. I mean, the most noteworthy thing about his preseason a year ago was seeing him deep into the second half in that Pittsburgh game and in that third game. So that's really kind of setting the table as we head into the final day of training camp here. Again, we'll hear from Shawn McDermott, and it's been, by and large, I think, a pretty successful camp, and one that, knock on wood, yes, there's injuries, but nothing that's put anyone on the shelf severely enough to put their even maybe start to the season in question.
Quickly on the defense, I think it's kind of been back and forth. There have been days that the offense has won the day. There have been days that the defense has won the day. I'd say today was pretty 50-50. You saw some incredible throws from Josh Allen. I have it in my notes, consistently kind of finding guys in the back of the end zone in 11 drills, red zone drills. There was a really nice play where he rolled right and kind of bided his time, and Khalil Shakir got away from the guy that was covering him, and he made the nice catch in the back of the end zone. But the defense also made its share of plays. And to me, consistently, it's the DBs making plays. And Bobby Babich said something earlier in camp when talking about the safety position specifically, that it's like, hey, we need guys back there that can make plays. But I think that extends to the entire secondary room, including that cornerback. Rasul Douglas had a would-be pick six today against Josh Allen. I think it was Curtis Samuel, kind of slipped on the route. But in my opinion, Rasul Douglas had already beat him to the ball. He was gone. That's a skill that we saw him flash during last season, those ball hawk abilities, and that's something that the Bills would love to see again this year. But Damar Hamlin getting in, punching the ball out, forcing what was probably James Cook's second fumble of this training camp. We've talked about Christian Benford, solid, steady guy, making plays again. So just the ball, the dynamic playability of that secondary, and their ability, once you project to the regular season, to create turnovers, create chaos, especially for a pass rush that we don't know what it's going to look like, where the strength of this defense is going to have to be the back seven. I think what they've shown in this camp, I think, bodes well for what this defense can be, especially if they get that element of Kaiir Elam being a solid third cornerback for this team.
One more sleep in the dorm room for me before one more practice here at St. John Fisher University. Bills wrapping up training camp here in Rochester on Thursday. With Jonathan Acosta, I'm John Scott for Channel 2 Sports.